Hello and welcome to part 4 of the High Performance Imports V6 commentary. This was, I think, the first time I ever went to Nikko Circuit. Shino, who I mentioned in the previous video, put me in touch with Shinji Minowa, who was a local D1 driver near her shop. And he actually gave me a lift all the way out to the circuit, which was helpful because finding a place like this back then with no GPS was a bit tricky. This was just a sort of an open practice day. There were a couple of D1 drivers there because there was a meeting coming up soon, but they had a bit of a hard time of it on this day because it was pretty wet.
Nikko Circuit is only a couple of hours from downtown Tokyo. Built in the remains of an old quarry, it is one of the most popular drift circuits in Japan. Over 60 cars entered the event. More than half of them were turbocharged Nissans like the 180SX, Silvia and Skyline.
Having said that, there's two C33 Laurels and a pair of A31 Saphiros. They're really just S13s in disguise with 4 doors.
Though this was only a minor league meeting, many of the D1 drivers were here just to practice. We got a ride to the track with Miwa Shinji, who competes in D1 with an AE86 Levin. For practice days he uses his silver AE86, which has a near standard engine, but the same suspension setup as his competition car. See how in a non-turbo Hachiroku like that, he's having to use a lot more handbrake and kick the clutch a lot to keep the car going around the corners. He most likely only had about 140 horsepower, maybe less, to work with there. So in a way, it might have been an advantage having a wet track. Another D1 driver doing a few laps was Ken Sato, the owner of drift workshop Kenworks. Apparently he's not so worried about damaging his best car.
Probably the first time I met Ken, I think. He competed with this yellow A86 for quite a long time. As you can see, he's doing the Japanese trick of not actually wearing your harness and just using the standard seatbelt instead.
On a wet track, having more power is actually a disadvantage. There's not much left of the front spoiler, but this doesn't seem to bother him too much. The biggest hassle for drivers at this level is getting stuck behind slower cars.
Nikko's now got longer aprons and not so much gravel, but a lot of cars are going into the gravel at this event. Might notice the two bars down the middle of the windscreen. That's because he actually had a Perspex windscreen, and all of the other windows were acrylic, as they call it in Japan.
Oh well.
There's Ken there in the red shirt. I was actually pronouncing his name wrong when we did this. It's Sato and not Sato, because Sato means salt.
Plenty more bumpers where that came from. This S13 Silvia actually belongs to an American who works at one of the US military bases near Tokyo. Quite a few expats like Mike are getting into the local drift scene. His car is a pretty typical S13 drift car, with a bunch of bolt-on engine mods and very low drift suspension. His Japanese competitors have an unfair advantage over him, however, as many start drifting before they even have a licence.
Yeah, Mike would happily admit at the time that he was a total beginner, but he's out with a group of drivers here who are also total beginners, so it's all good.
19でしょ
19
はい
だよね。うん、OK。
はいはい
He still politely put his hazard lights on to say thank you, despite despite being a bit annoyed there. There's one big advantage of going drifting on a day like this is you don't go through so many tyres. military training.
Yeah.
I've got to have to know drift.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta put the taxpayers' money to good use, right?
As I said, not exactly a high-level competition, but a lot of fun, and it gives you an idea of what the track was like back then. Anyway, that's it for part 4. I'll be back with another video soon. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.